You are not tired because you lack discipline. You are tired because something inside you has been forced to march in the wrong direction for too long. This exhaustion is not the loud kind. It does not announce itself with collapse. It arrives quietly, in the dull weight behind your eyes, in the way simple tasks feel heavier than they should, in the numbness that follows achievement instead of satisfaction. You are still capable, still competent. Others may even look at you and assume you are doing well, and yet something essential has thinned. This is the fatigue of someone who has been fighting without rest, not because they are weak, but because they are misaligned. Most people misunderstand burnout. They think it comes from too much work, too many hours, too many responsibilities. But you already know this is not true. You have rested before. You have taken time away. You have slowed down, only to return and feel the same quiet drain resume. Burnout that returns is not a problem of energy. It is a problem of direction. There is a particular pain that belongs only to ambitious adults. Not the hunger to begin, but the burden of continuing. You have invested too much to quit easily. You have built an identity around endurance, reliability, and being the one who carries weight without complaint. So you keep going, even as the inner cost grows harder to ignore. At first, ambition feels like fire. Later, it feels like an obligation. Eventually, it becomes a debt you do not remember agreeing to. You wake up not asking what matters, but asking, what must I push through today? This is where exhaustion deepens into something more dangerous, quiet resentment toward your own life, not outward bitterness, inward corrosion. You begin to feel late, behind, as if time itself is watching you with narrowing eyes. And so you press harder, not because it is wise, but because slowing down feels like failure. This is where shame quietly enters. You tell yourself that stronger people would handle this better, that more disciplined people would not feel this way, that if you were truly capable, you would not be this tired. But this shame is misplaced. In the old texts, exhaustion was not treated as a moral flaw. It was treated as information. When an army grew weary before the battle was decided, the general did not accuse the soldiers of laziness. He questioned the campaign. He asked where they were positioned, what terrain they were fighting on, what battles they were choosing to engage in, and which ones were quietly draining strength without offering real ground. You are not broken. You are overextended in the wrong direction. There is a difference between effort that strengthens and effort that erodes, between the strain that refines and the strain that fragments. When your actions no longer align with your inner structure, even success begins to feel hollow. You achieve goals and feel nothing. You cross milestones and immediately look for the next one, not out of excitement, but out of fear of stopping, because stopping would force you to feel how tired you truly are. This video is not here to motivate you. Motivation would only ask you to burn what little fuel remains. Instead, we will examine something more uncomfortable and more honest. Not how hard you are working, but what you are fighting for, and whether the fight itself still makes sense. Burnout is not the enemy, it is the messenger. It arrives when the inner commander senses that the war being fought no longer matches the land, the season, or the cost. If you listen carefully, you may notice something beneath the fatigue, a quiet intelligence, a refusal to continue wasting strength. This is not a weakness. This is the beginning of a strategy. There is a principle in Sun Tzu that most ambitious adults never hear, because it runs counter to the way the world teaches us to strive. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. At first glance, it sounds like a strategy for armies, but beneath the words lies a deeper truth. Effort alone does not guarantee success. It is the alignment of position, timing, and intention that carries the day. You have likely been fighting with courage, skill, and sheer force of will, yet the victories feel hollow. Perhaps you have completed projects, reached goals, or earned praise, and still the weight remains. This is not a failure of character. This is a failure of strategy. You are applying yourself to the wrong battlefield. Sun Tzu teaches that the wise commander avoids exhausting his troops unnecessarily. He does not fight when the terrain is against him, when the season is wrong, or when morale falters. He does not confuse motion for progress. Victory comes from understanding conditions before committing energy. Most modern advice glorifies relentless motion. Hustle is mistaken for discipline. Burnout is treated as a badge of courage. But effort without alignment quietly erodes strength. You are disciplined not because you push, but when your actions align with your inner structure. Consider the principle of position before force. A small, well-placed force can achieve what a larger, misdirected one cannot. In life, energy is finite. To expend it where it does not serve your direction is to weaken yourself unnecessarily. Ambition, when misaligned, produces the opposite of what it promises: exhaustion, frustration, and the constant sense of being behind. Sun Tzu calls it the slow defeat, the silent loss from overextending in battles that matter little. Observing your terrain matters. In ancient warfare, terrain dictated strategy. Mountains, rivers, and valleys determined marches, attacks, and withdrawals. In your life, the terrain is your circumstances, energy patterns, identity, and commitments. The battles you choose must respect this terrain, or every effort drains rather than strengthens. Winning without exhaustion is not avoiding effort. It is understanding which efforts matter, when to engage, and when to pause. Discipline is in restraint, in waiting for alignment before acting. It is a stillness that precedes motion, the calm intelligence that knows pushing harder will not create victory. This principle challenges modern ambition. It whispers that constant doing may be counterproductive. It asks you to question the battles you have been waging. Are you winning because of what you do, or merely moving because you cannot stop? The path forward is not in motion. It is in clarity, discerning which battles are yours, which deserve your energy, and which silently sap your strength. The war is not always outside. It is within, in the misalignment of will, actions, and direction. Sun Tzu's law is simple yet radical. Victory comes from position before force, alignment before action, and wisdom before struggle. Ignore it, and no energy will protect you from exhaustion. Understand it, and even a small, deliberate effort can move mountains. You are not failing because you lack strength. You are failing because your battles are chosen without observing the terrain of your life. Once you see the terrain clearly, you will discover that victory and calm is possible without pushing yourself to ruin. There is a war few people speak of. It does not appear on calendars. It does not have visible fronts or enemies. It rages quietly within those who seem most composed, most accomplished, most in control. You feel it every day, even if you cannot name it. A tug of war between what you must do and what you were meant to do, between expectation and essence, between the self you perform and the self you neglect. Ambition by itself is not dangerous. It is the misalignment of ambition that becomes a battlefield. You are not fighting laziness. You are fighting yourself, or rather, the fragmentation of your own life. Think of the roles you inhabit: worker, partner, parent, friend, learner, self-improver. Each demands attention, each insists on presence, each competes for energy. None of them is inherently wrong, yet none of them aligns perfectly with the other. And so, inside you, a silent civil war erupts. You chase deadlines while your body whispers for rest. You strive for excellence while your mind longs for meaning. You cultivate skill while your spirit starves for stillness. The modern adult often believes that balance is about equal distribution, but balance is not arithmetic. It is geometry. The angles, the alignment, the weight distribution, these determine whether your structure stands or collapses. Misalignment turns every effort into friction. Misalignment turns every ambition into strain. You may notice patterns, small failures in focus, irritability over minor issues, recurring fatigue that sleep cannot repair. These are the skirmishes of your internal war, signals that your forces are not coordinated, that your territory is fragmented, that your front lines are stretched too thin. You may try to enforce discipline, you may push harder, you may arrange your schedule, make lists, adopt routines, and yet the war continues because structure without alignment is simply better armor for the same exhaustion. You protect yourself from chaos outside while chaos inside quietly grows. There is another layer to this conflict: identity. You may have built a self-image around capability, reliability, or achievement. This self-image demands that you keep fighting, that you continue to prove, that you cannot yield. And so, even as exhaustion accumulates, you persist, believing surrender equals defeat. But Sun Tzu teaches that the wise general knows when the battle is internal as well as external, knowing when to engage, when to withdraw, when to reposition. This is the difference between silent defeat and strategic mastery. To see the internal battlefield is to see your own misalignment. The hidden war is fought not with external victories, but with the recognition of where energy leaks, where ambition distorts, and where the self divides. Most adults never witness this war because they are too busy engaging in skirmishes outside themselves. They reward outward success while punishing inward stillness. They mistake constant motion for progress and fragmentation for achievement. The truth is quieter. Your strength does not come from relentless doing. It comes from coherence, from the alignment of will, body, mind, and environment. It comes from recognizing the fronts that matter and letting go of the ones that silently drain you. You are not behind. You are not weak. You are misaligned. That is the diagnosis. That is the war you must understand before any true progress can occur. Until you see it, you will continue to march valiantly, but against yourself. Until you align, every victory will feel hollow. Every effort will leave residue of fatigue. Every ambition will carry the weight of unrecognized battle. This is the hidden war inside the modern adult. It is quiet, relentless, and largely invisible. And yet, it is the war that determines whether your life advances with clarity or collapses under its own strain. You may have noticed a cruel pattern. You organize, plan, execute, and still the energy drains. You follow advice, adopt routines, chase improvement, and yet fatigue accumulates. This is not your failure. It is the subtle consequence of misapplied effort. Effort alone does not guarantee vitality. Discipline alone does not guarantee clarity. Success alone does not guarantee fulfillment. You may check all the boxes, meet every expectation, and still feel hollow. This is the quiet law of alignment. Energy spent in the wrong direction erodes rather than strengthens. Imagine a river forced through a narrow, crooked channel. It flows, yes, but the water becomes turbulent, trapped, and drained before reaching the sea. Your energy behaves the same way when misaligned. You are flowing, moving, accomplishing, yet much of it dissipates before serving your true purpose. Sun Tzu warned against prolonged conflict, not because combat is shameful, but because prolonged, misapplied force depletes strength. Modern life does not usually look like a battlefield, yet the principle is the same. When your actions are misdirected, fatigue accumulates silently, invisibly, and relentlessly. You may tell yourself, I am disciplined, I am strong, I can endure. And yet the results, tiredness, irritability, dissatisfaction, refuse to lie. They are evidence of misalignment. They show that no amount of willpower can compensate for poor positioning. It is tempting to believe that rest will solve this. Sleep, breaks, vacations, yes, they temporarily relieve the strain. But if the underlying strategy is flawed, the exhaustion returns. The river remains crooked and the water becomes turbulent again. The invisible cost is even greater: self-blame. You wonder why, despite doing everything right, you feel worn down. You question your competence, your stamina, your identity. Shame creeps in quietly, whispering that perhaps there is something inherently lacking in you. But shame is misplaced. The fault is not in your character. It is in the unseen structure of your effort. Sun Tzu teaches that a commander must first know the terrain and the capacity of his forces before engaging. You too must see the terrain of your life and measure the capacity of your energy before engaging in daily battles. Your life, like an army, has finite resources. To expend them in misaligned ways is to invite slow defeat. Doing everything right is meaningless if it is done in the wrong context. Alignment, not motion, determines whether your energy builds or dissipates. When you recognize this, you begin to see that exhaustion is not a moral failing, but a diagnostic tool. It signals where your strategy is flawed, where your ambition has outpaced your inner alignment, where your will has been applied to the wrong terrain. True mastery of life does not come from doing more. It comes from seeing clearly which battles deserve your effort, which obligations drain you needlessly, which roles fragment your energy. Energy is not replenished by force. It is preserved and strengthened by alignment. It is not about trying harder. It is about being in the right place, at the right time, with the right focus. Until you see this, no amount of planning, scheduling, or pushing will prevent exhaustion. Your energy keeps leaving, not because you are weak, but because it is flowing against the current of your true path. Even when the truth becomes clear that much of your effort has been misdirected, there is another obstacle waiting quietly: resistance. You have built your identity around struggle. You have measured your worth in persistence, in endurance, in proving that you can carry weight without faltering. And now, the suggestion that some battles might not deserve your energy triggers fear, discomfort, even subtle panic. Letting go feels like surrender. It feels like failure. It feels like losing the only structure you have trusted to define yourself. And so you cling. You cling to routines, to obligations, to self-images that demand constant motion. You persist even when clarity whispers that a different path might preserve your strength instead of depleting it. This resistance is ancient. It is as old as human endeavor. The warrior who abandons the front without understanding the terrain risks dishonor. The adult who abandons the familiar fight risks emptiness, judgment, or regret. Both fear the unknown. Both fear the void that comes when struggle is no longer the measure of existence. You may notice subtle signs: hesitation before reprioritizing, discomfort in saying no, guilt when reducing effort, anxiety at the thought of perceived weakness. These are not flaws. They are evidence that identity and effort have been intertwined too tightly. Sun Tzu teaches that the wise commander does not throw away effort carelessly. He withdraws, repositions, and chooses battles that truly matter. Withdrawal is not weakness. It is strategic intelligence. And yet, for the ambitious adult, withdrawal is rarely graceful. It feels like giving up what has defined you for years. The tension is internal. On one side, reason whispers that preserving strength is wise. On the other hand, the ego screams that letting go is failure. You wrestle with yourself, not others. And this is the quietest, most draining battle of all. The fear of letting go also comes from the habit of proving, of achieving, of surviving the expectations of others. You may think, if I stop pushing, they will see I am not enough. But in reality, it is not others who demand your relentless striving. It is the internalized image of yourself as the tireless one. Resistance will not vanish with insight alone. It demands acknowledgement, naming it, observing it, and understanding why it persists. You must face the discomfort of potential loss, of identity, of routine, of recognition, and see it for what it truly is: a signal that realignment is necessary. The paradox is stark. To preserve yourself, you must sometimes yield. To gain clarity, you must sometimes retreat. To achieve genuine mastery, you must confront the fear of abandoning familiar battles. The resistance is not the enemy. It is the guardian of your old structure, the last sentinel before true alignment can take root. When you finally see this, when you recognize the fear for what it is, a new kind of strength emerges. It is quiet. It does not shout. It does not seek recognition. It is the ability to choose, to withdraw without shame, to engage selectively, and to trust that your energy will be far more potent when applied with discernment. The old fights do not vanish immediately, nor should they. But the moment you acknowledge the fear of letting go, you have begun the subtle, internal work that distinguishes the exhausted from the strategically alive. At last, we arrive at the principle that can transform exhaustion into clarity, position before force. Sun Tzu's wisdom is deceptively simple. Victory does not come from motion alone, from effort alone, from relentless pushing. It comes from understanding where you stand, what surrounds you, and how your energy interacts with the terrain before you act. Consider the adult life you lead. Every commitment, every responsibility, every ambition exists on a landscape shaped by circumstance, identity, and energy. To expend force without regard for these factors is to fight uphill without end. To achieve meaningful progress, you must first discern your position. Position is not a physical location. It is an alignment, internal and external. It is recognizing which battles are yours, which obligations strengthen your trajectory, which relationships amplify your energy, and which roles drain it silently. Position is awareness, perspective, and timing combined. It is the quiet calculation that precedes motion. Force, by contrast, is effort applied without thought. It is the constant motion, the relentless striving, the pushing harder when all signals indicate misalignment. Force alone can win battles, yes, but at a cost often invisible until fatigue accumulates and satisfaction retreats. Energy spent unwisely erodes not only strength, but clarity, patience, and resolve. The strategic shift, then, is subtle but radical. It asks you to pause before action. It asks you to measure the terrain of your life, your energy, your priorities, your inner capacity, and to act only when the alignment supports your motion. In this space, effort becomes effective, motion becomes sustainable. Discipline becomes a reflection of identity, not desperation. The paradox is that doing less can achieve more. When you act from the right position, the smallest effort yields disproportionate results. A well-placed word, decision, or action reverberates far beyond what constant motion could achieve. This is the elegance of strategic alignment. Stillness informs motion, and motion carries intention. Yet the shift is not comfortable. It demands patience. It demands quiet observation. It challenges the belief that busyness equates to worth. It asks you to relinquish the idea that proving yourself in every moment is necessary. And in that challenge lies freedom. Imagine a general surveying a battlefield. He does not charge immediately. He studies the ridges, the rivers, the wind, the disposition of his forces. Only when all factors favor him does he commit. The victory is not in the charge itself. It is in knowing when to strike and when to wait. The same applies to your life. Energy applied at the right time, in the right place, aligned with your true capacity, is far more powerful than constant motion without insight. Position before force also reveals where withdrawal is wise. Sometimes the right move is not forward, but sideways or back. This is not failure, it is strategic preservation. You conserve strength, maintain clarity, and prepare for engagement when conditions are favorable. The river flows not by fighting its banks, but by following the path carved by terrain and current. In modern terms, this principle seems counterintuitive. We are told to push harder, optimize endlessly, and resist the urge to pause. But Sun Tzu reminds us, unaligned effort is waste. Deliberate, aligned effort is mastery. The battlefield is not against external foes alone. It is within. Your misalignment is the opponent that drains energy silently. To adopt this principle is to reclaim agency, to see the terrain, to place yourself intentionally, to act with precision instead of desperation. Force without position is exhaustion. Position without understanding is inaction. True mastery is the marriage of both, deliberate effort emerging from aligned stillness. Once this becomes practice, the quiet fatigue begins to dissipate. Energy no longer leaks silently. Effort no longer erodes strength. Ambition, once heavy, begins to feel light. The battlefield inside you shifts from chaos to clarity. Victory finally is possible, not through relentless doing, but through strategic alignment, where position informs force and force becomes an extension of clarity. Now that position and force have been understood, the next step is integration. Strategy alone is insufficient if the vessel, your body, mind, and spirit, is fragmented. Sun Tzu's wisdom reminds us that a general cannot command effectively if his soldiers are exhausted, disoriented, or divided. Likewise, your life cannot advance if your own faculties are misaligned. The body is the foundation. It is not merely the instrument of action, but the terrain from which all energy flows. Sleep, nutrition, movement, and stillness are not optional. They are the natural laws that govern your capacity to engage. Ignoring them is like sending troops into battle without weapons or fortifications. The fight may continue, but the losses accumulate silently. The mind is the commander. It observes, discerns, and directs. Without clarity, position is meaningless. A restless or distracted mind will misinterpret terrain, miscalculate risks, and misalign efforts. Mental cultivation is not intellectual accumulation. It is stillness within motion. Meditation, reflection, journaling, or quiet study are not luxuries. They are strategic reconnaissance, the act of understanding the terrain before committing energy. The spirit is the alignment with purpose. It is not a lofty abstraction, but the internal compass that guides action. When spirit is neglected, the mind and body may continue to act, but they do so without resonance, without coherence. Effort becomes hollow, ambition becomes a burden, and energy dissipates despite discipline. Cultivation of spirit is achieved through practices that reconnect you with what matters: honesty, integrity, and the alignment of action with deeper values. Integration is the subtle art of synchrony. It is the moment when body, mind, and spirit act as one, when effort flows effortlessly, and when energy is preserved rather than wasted. Like a river navigating mountains, your faculties must flow in unison, respecting the contours of your inner terrain. Misalignment in any one domain generates friction and fatigue, no matter how disciplined you appear externally. Consider a daily practice, not a rigid routine imposed externally, but a sequence that honors natural rhythms, rising and resting in accordance with your body's needs, choosing tasks when the mind is clear, engaging in action that resonates with spirit. When alignment governs the sequence, even ordinary tasks carry efficacy. Even minor accomplishments feel sustaining rather than draining. Integration also demands awareness of boundaries. Your energy is finite. To preserve it, you must discern which obligations, environments, and relationships nourish versus those that deplete. Sun Tzu emphasizes knowing both the strengths and vulnerabilities of your forces. You must do the same with yourself. Acknowledge limits without judgment, and position your energy where it produces leverage rather than erosion. The paradox is this: true productivity emerges not from relentless doing, but from harmony within. Strength is born from stillness, clarity from observation, and resilience from coherence. When body, mind, and spirit are integrated, effort becomes effortless. Motion is informed by observation. Energy flows naturally without resistance. Finally, integration cultivates identity. You are no longer a fragmented agent of external expectations. You are a coherent presence in your own life. Alignment is not imposed, it is lived. Your ambition is no longer a source of silent drain, but a channel through which purpose, energy, and action converge. This is the essence of mastery. Not more effort, not constant struggle, but integrated alignment. From here, the next step, refining identity, becomes not an abstract aspiration, but a natural continuation of coherence across body, mind, and spirit. Now comes the most delicate work, identity. Not the reinvention the world urges, not the creation of a new self in response to dissatisfaction or expectation, but the refinement of who you already are. This is the quiet art of aligning your inner structure with your outer life, so that effort, ambition, and energy no longer fracture, but flow as one. For too long, you may have measured yourself by output, approval, or external markers. These metrics are illusions when taken as measures of self. They demand relentless striving, constant proving, and endless adaptation. They scatter your energy, fragment your focus, and erode inner cohesion. Refinement, by contrast, does not require more doing. It requires awareness, discernment, and subtle adjustment. Refinement begins with observation. Notice the roles you inhabit, the obligations you accept, the energies you expend. See where your identity is overextended or misaligned. Identify the parts of self shaped by expectation rather than truth. This is not self-judgment, it is reconnaissance. You are gathering intelligence on your landscape, not condemning it. Next comes selective letting go, not of your principles, not of true ambitions, but of behaviors, habits, and patterns that drain rather than strengthen. This is uncomfortable because it feels like a loss. Yet the removal of misalignment is not subtraction, it is purification. Like a master removing impurities from a blade, you refine your identity to reveal the sharp, enduring core. Then comes consolidation. What remains after observation and removal is your essential self, capacities, values, rhythms, and natural inclinations. These are the forces to leverage, not fight against. Identity refinement is the act of concentrating energy and making effort coherent with who you truly are. When your actions emanate from the center, even small choices carry disproportionate power. This process includes boundaries. Your refined identity knows what to accept and what to release. It recognizes that not every battle, expectation, or demand deserves engagement. Strength lies in discernment, not in trying to be everything to everyone. By positioning yourself selectively, you preserve energy, protect clarity, and honor coherence. Finally, refinement leads to rhythm. Discipline is no longer a matter of willpower or enforcement. It emerges naturally from alignment between identity, effort, and purpose. When the internal and external landscapes are synchronized, persistence becomes effortless, focus becomes instinctive, and resilience arises without strain. Identity refinement is quiet. It does not produce immediate accolades, but it produces coherence. Exhaustion dissipates. Ambition becomes sustainable. Effort becomes effective. Life no longer feels like a series of battles you were never meant to fight. It becomes a continuous unfolding of your true capacity. This is the difference between endless striving and strategic mastery. Reinvention imposes, refinement reveals. Reinvention demands proving, refinement aligns with reality. Reinvention fractures, refinement harmonizes. By returning to your essence and aligning effort and ambition with it, you achieve mastery that is enduring, quiet, and unshakable. Here, identity is no longer a tool of achievement. It is the foundation from which action flows naturally. The refined self acts with precision, restraint, and clarity. The battles you choose, the efforts you expend, and the ambitions you pursue emerge from the center, coherent and true. This is not self-improvement as the world presents it. It is self-cultivation as the masters intended, subtle, enduring, aligned. You do not create someone new. You uncover who you have always been and let that presence guide your motion. At last, we arrive at the final horizon: time, regret, and the path forward. These are not concepts to fear or lament. They are the natural markers of existence, the terrain upon which all cultivation must take place. Without acknowledging them, refinement is incomplete. Time is not infinite. Each moment that passes is energy spent, battles chosen, and attention allocated. Ambition without alignment makes time an enemy, slipping away unnoticed, leaving only fatigue and a faint echo of what could have been. Alignment transforms time into an ally. When your efforts flow from clarity and position, each moment carries purpose, and energy is preserved rather than scattered. Regret is not a punishment, it is information. It whispers where misalignment occurred, where ambition was misapplied, where battles were chosen out of habit rather than discernment. Many spend lifetimes avoiding regret, yet it is an invaluable guide. Observe it without shame. Learn from it without self-recrimination. In its quiet voice lies the intelligence that your misaligned energy cannot teach. The path forward is not shortcuts, but deliberate unfolding. Begin with position before force, alignment over motion, refinement over reinvention, and integration of body, mind, and spirit. These principles are enduring because they are true. They demand patience, observation, and quiet courage. Look at your commitments. Which battles reflect true purpose? Which are inherited from expectation, habit, or fear? Let this observation guide your choices. Do not rush to fix the past. Align the present so future motion flows with less friction and greater coherence. Time and regret become allies when you act with discernment. Each decision is an investment, each boundary a fortification, each withdrawal a strategic repositioning. Mastery is not conquering more, but aligning deeply. Effort serves your essence, not external expectation. Fatigue is not shame. Refinement is return, not change. Walk forward, neither reckless nor timid, but steady, aware, and coherent. Victory is redefined, not in what you achieve, but in who you are becoming.